The climate conversation has never been more divided. As disruptors in this space, we're hungry to find solutions to the challenges our environment faces. Welcome to the Climate Rebels podcast. My name is Joel Caesar. I'm joined by Owen Barrett and Chris Pomerleau. We are experts in clean energy, net zero real estate, decarbonization, and entrepreneurship. We celebrate those who take action against the climate crisis and are striving to make the world a cleaner place. Thanks for joining the conversation. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to the Climate Rebels podcast. Joining me as always is Owen Barrett, the Elon Musk of green building. And of course, myself, the world's greatest climate podcast host, Joel Caesar. Today's guest is Meg Haywood Sullivan. Meg is a sustainability strategist and third-generation creative with over a decade of experience in the nonprofit and photography industries. Meg has dedicated her life's work to the intersection of art and science, inspiring action through small steps towards a more sustainable future. Outside of her nonprofit and photo work, Meg is working towards a master's in sustainability at Harvard and creates multi-dimensional campaigns for brands like SG Blocks, Patagonia, Prana, and Cliff Bar. Meg was a great guest. I kind of fanboyed over her, which might be embarrassing, but always been a fan of her content. I met her years ago through a Surfrider event and been following her since, because she's, as you can tell on the show, she's really unique in having this ability to be artistic and articulate and dynamic, but then she knows the numbers and she knows the science, and she, in this much needed way, weaves them together to educate people. So I couldn't celebrate her more.
Yeah, no, I think, I think the data and the science turns off a lot of people, both on the side of climate change and not on the side. So if there was a way to sort of frame the problem, that's more relatable for people. I mean, that's the whole point of our podcast. That's like what she's doing through art. So I think it's genius. I think it's super smart and really important.
Yeah, well, we were lucky to have her. But before we get into all that, let's dive into a new segment we're calling The Eco Adventures of Joel's New Money Pit House. I think that's a good title. So just moved to New York, bought an old house, runs on oil. It's heated by freaking oil, which you're going to love. Well, we'll make this an ongoing bit on the show, how I'm navigating the net zero transition of my old oil field home with no insulation. But
we should do a Joel's Inflation Reduction Act journey.
Yes, we should. That's a great idea. We should do a blog about it, and we should do bits about it. But today, not so climate energy focused. I'm going to talk a little bit about materials, because one of the first projects we're trying to do is replace this old, crappy, dirty carpet, and we want to put some hardwood flooring in. And my wife, God bless her, she is very eco-focused, but not a nerd like us. She's not living and breathing this, right? A big challenge we talk a lot about. Lots of people want to do the right thing, but goes to Home Depot or asks some friends or family or interior designers she knows, that everyone's like, luxury vinyl. And you go to Home Depot, luxury vinyl, cheap. You can make it look like wood, lasts forever, super durable, waterproof. And I'm like, I come from deep green living building challenge, where you vet every single material that goes into a building and ensure that has no cancer causing chemicals. And vinyl chloride, the chemical that makes PVC and makes the stuff that goes into this flooring, is one of the worst offenders on earth from an environmental catastrophe standpoint. I mean, the thing that caught everyone's attention, the train that derailed in Ohio that caused a plume of black smoke the size of the whole state, that was carrying vinyl chloride. So I don't know what my rant is here, except, I guess it's like frustrating that why isn't Home Depot or why aren't people in the interior design space, why don't they know about this? Why are they advocating for luxury vinyl?
To vinyl.
You could use cork. Cork is a natural, sustainable material, grows really fast and has a lot of natural properties. Bamboo, again, really grows really fast.
I got a good
hardwood.
Story about bamboo. There's a Cali bamboo company out here in California. I guess they're the sustainable vinyl. You call them the eco vinyl.
So it's vinyl. They call themselves Cali bamboo, but it's vinyl.
Yeah, it's vinyl. It must have like a bamboo laminate, or it's less vinyl,
that's common.
Like a blend. And I tried to do the same thing you were doing. Moved into a house, wanted to redo the floors. I didn't go as hardcore as you. I was like, we're going to do vinyl, but I want to do the most sustainable vinyl that I can find. Installed Cali bamboo. Looked great for maybe 3 months. And then literally within 3 months started cracking and chipping. And called up the company and said, like, we got some issues. and they would not stand behind their warranty. You know, it's supposed to be warranted forever. We had to redo the whole house. We had to redo our floors twice. So good luck on your flooring project is the point of that story.
It's it's interesting, even as on this episode, when we talk to Meg and we're talking about how do you not talk down to people and how do we bring what we know to the public in a informative way that allows people to make better decisions. I don't know if you remember the episode we did with Mona Vand. I did it by myself, but she talked about how she's out there promoting all the healthy eating habits that she's learned about and developed over time. And she talked about how it's like removing ego from it. And it's just about educating. Like, she's like, people need to know about this. I know about it. I got to help other people learn about it. So I think it's maybe something we can do on the show with these bits is, look, I mean, luxury vinyl is cheaper, but there's a lot of people that if they knew luxury vinyl is $4 a foot and cork is $5 a foot. So on your 300 square foot flooring, you know, it's more, but it's enough that if they knew this is between something that helps the planet and something that is destroying it and destroying the people that make it, right? Even that's the part of vinyl chloride, the chemical part, the processing that's not just about the environment, but you're impacting humans who are the ones that have to work on this stuff. If people knew it, they would probably a lot of times make the choice, oh, I'll pay a couple extra bucks. But it's just this perspective that, oh, Home Depot, everyone else says luxury vinyl, so that's what we're going to get.
Well, not just that too, but you know, I have a hard time believing that the chemicals going into this product are so toxic. Creating this this product is so toxic, but then you install it in your house and it's all good. Don't worry about anything. It's not like, come on, give me a break.
No,
there's got to be some negative.
It off gases over time, for sure.
Exactly. So, I mean, yeah,
it's not good for your kids.
Thing, but how about like, hey, let's install this other flooring so we don't get our kids cancer.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I'm sure we just made ourselves some friends in the luxury vinyl industry. If they want to come on and debunk any of our
Cali Bamboos, if you want to sponsor our podcast, it's joinraven.com/Climate Rebels.
Come on the show and let us know how you're going to help Owen fix the issue that you created. Well, this was fun. Eco Adventures of Joel's Money Pit House will be an ongoing bit here we do. But now let's jump into our conversation with Meg Haywood Sullivan. Meg Haywood Sullivan is a sustainability strategist and third-generation creative. With over a decade of experience in the nonprofit and photography industries, Meg has dedicated her life's work to the intersection of art and science, inspiring action through small steps towards a more sustainable future. Outside of her nonprofit and photo work, Meg is working towards a master's in sustainability at Harvard and creates multi-dimensional campaigns for brands like SG Blocks, Patagonia, Prana, and Cliff Bar. As co-founder of the movement Plastic Free Fridays, she hosts climate-related PSAs as an ambassador for Conservation International, Surfrider Foundation, and Protect Our Winters, and is an active member of the Explorers Club. So, Meg, welcome to the Climate Rebels podcast.
Thank you for having me, Joel.
And Owen. Come on.
And Owen. But Joel was the one that was speaking first. So, yes, both you two.
She's thinking the important one. All right, Meg. Well, we like to get right to work here on the show. We ask all our guests the same question to start. How are you a climate rebel?
Okay, climate rebel. I was excited to answer this one. Well, for one, I'm a liberal, crunchy granola vegetarian, yet I have my hunting license and used to drive an F-250 and live in Montana. So I'd like to think that I'm a climate rebel because I like to see beyond party lines to help reach across the divide to focus on solutions and focus on climate optimism and action. So I think that kind of sets me apart in the environmental movement. And I like to think that I'm kind of this middle ground of progress.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Joel, I got to ask a question before we dive into all the stuff, which is super important. Meg, what's your favorite vegetarian meal? The reason that I ask is my wife and I just became vegetarians. Not just, we've been doing it for like 3 months now. It's hard to cook. Like it's much harder than just making chicken and, green beans. So give me your favorite meal.
Oh gosh. Well, happy to give you all sorts of recs after the podcast too. My fiance is also a former big meat lover. And, it's just about like incorporating different types of protein. Like we wind up eating so much protein. Like broccoli has protein, like eggs, like there's protein from other sources other than just meat. And
Yeah.
eating closer with plants and having more like natural and more plant-based sources of your nutrition. I mean, it's healthier and it's ultimately better for the planet. So, I mean, there's all different types of solutions. Like if you, for instance, really love the taste and quality of meat, there's things like Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger, and those are kind of like substitutions for that. But there's
Yeah.
also ways to not have like substitute meat and just incorporate like more beans and like other savory ways to have that like kind of umami and rich protein take. So yeah, after podcast, happy to give you some recipes. But like we eat pasta all the time, and it's gluten free, and we'll have like chickpeas in it, and I still eat cheese. I'm not vegan, but
Yeah.
yeah, I there's so many ways to do it, and it's really flavorful, and it's kind of a fun challenge. I look to it as like a way to challenge myself, and also like eat a little closer to the things that are around me. Luckily, I'm in California, so we have a lot of fresh produce year round.
Awesome. Joel, are you vegetarian yet?
Not full vegetarian. I call myself plant forward though.
Yeah,
And
I love
I got a
that.
great recipe for you. It's a Moroccan chickpea stew with coconut milk and turmeric. It's one of my go-to vegetarian
A
meals. Really
little
filling.
Climate Rebels cookbook in our future.
Yeah, we should.
Mm.
Totally.
Okay, well, I have a mushroom risotto. That's fantastic. I'll throw that one in the mix too.
All right, love it.
And both of those could be made with an Instant Pot where we can add the electric kitchen to this. So even if you have gas and you don't want to cook with your gas, use the Instant Pot and then you're carbon-free cooking.
Man,
Boom.
crushing right now.
Crushing. All right, well, let's get back to Meg. F-250 hunting license. How do we not start there? One of our previous guests, Trevor Nielsen, Owen, I don't know if you saw, he posted on LinkedIn recently about the Montana youth-led climate lawsuit and how that was won by a bunch of young people who want to hunt and fish in the West. And I thought it was a really cool message by him, and I'm sure, Meg, you'd agree that finding this bridge, climate optimism, making sure we're not pointing fingers at one side or the other. We all kind of want a healthy planet and we want to enjoy it in the future. And it's really cool that that's how you started your answer here. So expand upon that. How much are you still hunting these days?
I've actually, just putting the record straight, I've actually never hunted before. However, I have eaten meat in the past, and I thought it was important to know, where that comes from, and also like have the ability and the knowledge, the wherewithal to understand like different cultures within the United States. I got my undergraduate degree at Montana State, and so that's where I cut my teeth in the outdoor industry. And I'd have knocks on my door at 2 a.m. with friends like, "Oh, can I use your freezer? Like, I have, this elk steak from, them just coming back from an elk hunt." And these would fill my freezer, friends' freezers, and that was a way to, sustainably and affordably provide for my whole friend community. So I understand the benefit of finding allies in that space. And actually, there was a really fascinating Scientific American article that just came out. And the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership did some really cool research, and it showed that 72% of hunters and anglers believe that climate change is happening. And then within that segment, 74% believe that human activity is the cause. And
Wow.
when you think about the hunting and angling community, most of those people wind up voting very conservatively. So they're voting against what they believe in. So this is an opportunity to really reach across party lines and get a whole nother crop of voters to vote for climate action. And unfortunately, with how things are going, it's just we don't see eye to eye. If you don't see eye to eye on everything, you can't talk to each other.
Yeah.
And what I find so amazing about the youth in Montana, and I'm just like a proud former Montanan seeing youth stand up and hearing their voices, honored. But yeah, it shows that we really can work together when we have something common to fight for. And for that, for many hunters and anglers, that's like having open space that for their kids to go out, enjoy nature, enjoy animals, make sure that there's still elk roaming. So there's a lot that we can agree upon. And I think it's just finding and teasing those commonalities out and chat and like having conversations and dialogue about them. Because that's where real action can happen.
That's the second time you said action, and I love it because Joel and I are, we're pretty frustrated with the lack of action. Empty promises in the future that probably don't really matter. The thing that I love the most about these kids in Montana is, so many times I read about like people ruining priceless paintings or gluing themselves to airport runways, really like doing things that is going to have zero impact on climate change. These kids are like setting a new bar, which I think all of these folks that want to protest or want to like do something sort of outlandish against the lack of action with climate change, they got to channel their energy into what matters, like what these kids in Montana did. And that, I just think you emphasizing action is such an important piece of everything we're talking about. It's got to be a ton of action quickly.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm not someone from the conservative party, which is so funny that I feel like I've been kind of trying to shine a light on different perspectives. But, for members of, more conservative minds that, performative actions are really polarizing and really, turn them off. And I think what the Montana youth did was, instead of having it just be performative where you're throwing paint on a priceless painting, they really got behind something and worked together. And it was like hard work, smarts, American ingenuity to really get something done. And I think, that's what America is about. And kind of channeling a little bit of like the American dream of anything's possible. And I think, I think this kind of action is where people from all different political backgrounds can really get behind and be like, okay, this works. We can use our voices and make change happen without having to, damage things and damage people's reputations too. Cancel culture is another thing I'd like to chat about too at some point.
Oh, we will. But that comment about performative actions pissing people off, I think is really a good one. I know we have a company right now that's very active on social media. We're trying to get a lot of attention to our website to raise money for what we're doing with real estate and net zero. And Owen and I sometimes are the ones managing the account and commenting, chatting with climate deniers who are attacking us from our ads that we're posting or our posts. And Owen and I might have a different approach. He gets angry at them and sometimes name calls them, which we got to make sure he doesn't do. I'm going to ask you, Meg, to tell him the same thing. But I've a few times
Let me set the record straight. Some guy's name was Richard, and I called him Dick with a capital D, like a nickname. And we got flagged on TikTok for that. I think that's just clever.
Yes, I think it's clever too, but it's like a double entendre right there. It can go both ways. But yes.
Well, what I was going to say though is a few times I've taken the approach, someone attacks us and we put something about how we believe in net zero real estate because it's a solution to the climate crisis. Something pretty basic, right? It's not outlandish or polarizing, and we'll get attacked like, oh, you're part of the left wing conspiracy that's trying to brainwash America into becoming socialism or something. And then we'll respond under the company account and just say, hey, we're just a real estate company, private business that's trying to offer opportunities for you to make money investing in solar energy based real estate, which we think is a smart thing. And then they start to have a conversation with me. Oh, that's cool. Tell me more about it. Mm-hmm. So, I think we're always trying to learn from our guests, Meg. You and I met years ago briefly in the world of Surfrider, which I'd love to get to. But since then, I follow your content on Instagram, especially, and you're a gifted communicator. So can you please educate my colleague and friend Owen here how to better do this in the future?
All right. Well, first of all, people just want to be heard. And I think especially on social media, where you can hide behind like this facade of, being in your cozy, comfortable, safe home, people are just dying to be acknowledged. And for some folks, that means spreading hate and spreading bad vibes. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, social media almost like rewards that kind of behavior. And it kind of creates these like mean, snowballing dialogues in the comment section. And ultimately, when you reach across and you're like, hey, like, let's chat about this. Like, I hear you. Oftentimes when I get haters on my social media, I will acknowledge what they've said. Be like, I hear that XYZ is important to you. It's also important to me. This is what I'm doing about it. This is my perspective. What do you think? And so I give them an opportunity to be like, I heard you. This is what I think. I want to chat with you and hear what you have to say. And we can just, at the end of that conversation, agree to disagree. But I think at the end of the day, most of these people just want to feel seen. And the other ones that don't want to feel seen, there's a high chance that they're bots that potentially the fossil fuel industry are funding. So I try to remind myself that frequently. And then if I keep getting these bots or haters, there's a really wonderful thing called blocking. And, my page is not a page for negativity, and it's a page for dialogue. Let's have constructive dialogue. And, we can have differing opinions, but it's not a place for unhinged, mean-hearted comments. And so feel free to block people. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. We've never actually blocked anyone. My sense of this whole social media thing, and maybe I'm way off base, I agree to your guys' approach. I think it's probably more effective. Where I start to get a little uneasy with not just like shutting down climate deniers is I feel like them spewing their nonsense online like proliferates this idiocracy around denying climate. So my perspective has been just like shut them down with science. I'm not going to acknowledge their craziness. A lot of times it's us asking them to send data. Like I'll give out my personal email address to crazy people on TikTok and say, send me anything you want me to read. I've been sent 0.
Yeah.
From these
people. Data speaks. I think that's also a great way to find common ground. And there's ways to go about it, like, acknowledge their point. And, hey, I see you're really angry about this. Like, would love to discuss this. Like, here's the data points, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Like, let's have a convo. And to your point, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have anything to say, but the acknowledgement of them, speaking up for some of these, like, what is it? Like the couch haters. I forget the terminology for those folks, but I feel like that's a great way to address it and also not proliferate climate misinformation, which, to be fair, is rampant, unfortunately.
Well, this is a good segue though to your expertise, Meg, because as much as you two both said data works, it also doesn't. It doesn't work. It's not working, like convincing people that climate change is real and we should do something about it. And I know, Meg, you're sort of famous for not using data so much. I mean, I know you do, you're educating people, but you're using the arts as a different way. I don't know. Have you guys heard about this TV show called Extrapolations? By any chance? Yes. It's on Apple Plus, I guess. I just heard about it because I was listening to a podcast, the Zero podcast, the Bloomberg one, and they had this woman who's one of the producers of Extrapolations. It's part of this new genre of entertainment, climate-based entertainment, basically. And Extrapolations is this show that portrays the future in a climate-changed world, but does it through human dialogue and storytelling, and it's not so focused on climate. It's just climate changing is the backdrop to it. And she talked a lot about how the data she's seen, like she's very much an activist and has decided to dedicate her life to using art and especially entertainment and video and film as a way to get her message out. But yeah, Meg, you tell us, you're the one out there using art to disseminate information. Why is that your medium and how is that working?
Well, first and foremost, I feel like the arts are such an underrated tool in the toolkit, and especially in America where, you're seeing art programs underfunded, budgets cut in public schools for art programs. And art is a fantastic way to reach all different people, all different, socioeconomic statuses. It's a great way to reach people across different political backgrounds. And it's a way that it's almost like a mirror for folks. two people can look at a painting or two people can watch a movie and have completely different perspectives of it while still understanding the same concepts. And so when you're talking about data points, and if you're talking about data points for uneducated people as well, the arts are a really great way to reach those people and also find like a common ground too that they can understand. And I'm so happy you brought up extrapolations. I was actually at their global premiere with the Environmental Media Association. Love the work that they do, and love the work that Hollywood is doing, and especially with writers, weaving in more climate narratives into entertainment, and also hopefully in the future having future-facing films that don't feature climate labeled as sci-fi, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
talked about that. I thought that was amazing. She was saying films that portray the future and don't show a rapidly changed world because of climate, that's the science fiction.
That's science fiction. 100%.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Entertainment, art, film, poetry, you name it. The arts are a really great way to visualize in multiple different ways the same data points that you see in these very dense, like the IPCC report or any of these peer-reviewed documents that most people don't have the background to understand. And I think it's imperative, and the environmental movement has not done a great job in utilizing the power of the arts to reach more people. I think it's imperative that we lean into the arts. Think about how many millions of Americans tune in to Netflix, Hulu, you name it, every night. What a fantastic way to really create a culture of understanding and, fire people up in the meantime as well. So I've really dedicated my life and career to this niche, and I see the benefits of it. I see the power of it, and the timeliness of it. It's really important. And guess what? The arts are also a depolarization avenue as well, which, as you know, in our political climate, we need more and more and more and more.
You know what's interesting, Joel? Did you know that I won my high school art show?
Oh.
No, I would have never guessed.
So, Meg, as you were talking, I mean, everything you said hit home. Like such a great way to portray the dangers of climate change in sort of a non-polarizing way. But some of the things that we talk about on this show too, outside of climate, is like entrepreneurship and innovative business models. And I would characterize myself as a pretty like analytical, numbers-driven person, but I always loved art in school. Like I did it all the way through high school.
You're a rare breed.
Yeah, but I think something about being exposed to art in school, like if you think about the core academics that you do in K through 12, there's really nothing that has to do with creativity. It's like very in the box thinking, memorization. Art is like the one area where kids can practice creativity. And that has like a huge downstream effect on entrepreneurship later in life. If we get rid of arts from school, that's kind of scary to think what the result is going to be, 18 years later for these kids when they could be out creating businesses, but they've like been stripped of creativity.
You're so right about that. And it brings up, just some stuff that happened in my childhood. So my school defunded the art program completely. So we went from having art class every week to nothing. And my mom, she's a professional artist and internationally renowned pastel painter. She was up in arms about it. And there was nothing that the school was going to do about it. So she volunteered once a week to come in and teach art class to my class. She didn't have enough time to do the whole school. And she did that for, 10 years or something crazy like that. And one of the first things that she would do every year, and she would do this consistently to really challenge children's perspectives of seeing the world. She would have kids, okay, class, like, let's sit down, like, love you to draw a tree. And so, you would see at the end of the session, these little like brown popsicle sticks with a green ball at the top. And she's like, oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Okay, now we're going to go outside and do an exercise, and we are going to hug a tree. So she's like, we get the whole class out there. She has the kids getting out there, wrapping their little arms around trees. And then she would have them look up and see how the tree branches are, cascading across the sky and like intertwined and like, oh, they look like veins that we have in our bodies and rivers. And so then the class would sit down and draw what they saw, not what they think they saw. And the trees were all across the board. They were like really crazy colors, like different patterns. And to your point about entrepreneurship, it's all about seeing things differently and thinking outside the box. And we really need youth to be able to think that way, especially when you're talking about finding new solutions for climate. And I really do hope that we continue to fund the arts in this country, because it is critical, not only to like be pushing the boundaries of human capabilities in business and science, you name it, art and science. Oh my gosh, they're so similar. But also just, affecting how people think differently, and how it's good to have differences, and it's good to see the world in color. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's a great
and
point.
especially in an AI driven world where humans are going to be doing less and less, what makes us human more than art, and how do we differentiate human art from AI art is also probably frightening to people like your mother, Meg.
I mean, that's a whole another podcast we could get into. So.
Yeah, totally.
Oh.
Well, let's jump to, I actually read an article this morning about, it seems pretty obvious, but right, there was some empirical data around people who spend time in nature will care about the environment more. Even people who watch nature documentaries will care about the environment more. Meg, I think you and I have been trying to connect recently, but you've been out there photographing horses, Mustangs, and I know it's a big part of your life. So tell the audience how that part of your work, being a creative, being a photographer, bringing the beauty of nature to people who maybe can't access it, and how that's part of everything you're trying to do around environmentalism and climate.
I mean, exactly to your point, like people care about things that they understand. And, for a lot of folks that don't have the privilege of living near a national park or a national seashore, their access to nature is a lot more limited than the folks that say live in the mountains or by the beach. And unfortunately, American public transit systems aren't really conducive to getting people out into the hills, into the mountains, to the beach. And so there's a lot of really amazing organizations, to your point, like Surfrider Foundation, that helps get inner city folks to the beach.
I helped start that program.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like photography and the art and like the work I do out, in the backcountry, that's my version of getting these landscapes that are so delicate and precious to the public and to people to care about them. Photographing a beautiful, glacier in its like all its glory, knowing that this glacier is rapidly receding, like, bringing that conversation to folks that may never have seen the snow before. That's powerful. And, also you touched on the fact that like the benefit of nature can be felt by viewing a nature documentary, by looking at a nature photograph on a wall. It's clinically proven. There's a really great book called The Nature Fix, which really dives into some of those nitty gritty data points and some of that research around the benefits of and health benefits of nature. Also, even just taking 20 minutes of your day to walk outside under a tree canopy in your urban park, that can work wonders on reducing the stress hormones in your body. So there's so many different ways to incorporate nature and the health benefits of it. And for me, that avenue is photography. But for other people, it could be, having like your soundtrack when you go to sleep of like a forest. It could be looking outside your window if you work in an office building and focusing on that beautiful park below you. So I'm all about spending as much time as humanly possible outside, and whatever that outside may be for you.
It's so intuitive in young people as well. I have a 3 and 5 year old girls, and we were watching a Netflix series about these sea wolves, these wolves that live on the coastline in British Columbia. Amazing. Everyone should watch it if you haven't. But it was kind of awesome to witness my kids just be mesmerized by this. I didn't condition them in anything. I had it on, and then now it's all my daughter wants to watch. She wants to watch the Seawolves. So kids, people, we want to connect with nature. So Meg, I know you know this, and it's why you're so popular on social media and everything you do. But bringing that medium to people who can't otherwise experience it, super, super important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, outdoorsmanship is also another avenue, especially in our country, that all of us, or most of us, can get behind. I mean, that is so true to the heart of our country. And, what ties into outdoorsmanship is conservation. What ties into outdoorsmanship is thinking about something greater than yourself. Think about the indigenous folks of our country too. They were so in tune with nature. And there's a lot we can learn from, indigenous wisdom about how to view the natural world. And I think all these avenues, like, watching sea wolves on TV, like these are 21st century ways to get kids interested in the natural world. And yes, obviously the best thing would be to be able to see those sea wolves in person. But, the reality is that that's unfortunately not possible in today's world. So there's so many different other avenues to educate and inspire, and they all work together to ultimately like create a culture of I'm not going to say culture of hope, but like a culture of excitement of learning.
Well, Meg, let's transition to, you touched on this a little bit today, but I'm going to ask you a little bit more directly so you can continue to educate us. Because again, I have to yell at Owen a lot on the show because he's always trying to bring up politics, conservatives versus liberals. And, we're trying not to be a political show, but I guess around climate, it's really hard. But, people get caught in the weeds in the fight for climate change, and they get caught on lightning rod soundboard messages that aren't really what's really happening. And I know you're someone who thinks a lot about this. So how do we unite people around common goals despite the variances in beliefs and approaches?
Well, Owen, I'm right there with you. I think it's important to get political and yeah, just have.
Oh, damn it!
What? I mean, I agree with you too.
I said, damn it! You're on his side.
I am on his side.
One thing, like, I don't want to be a political person, but I feel like climate change is the one topic that both sides should agree on. Abortion, healthcare, all this stuff. Like, I get how it can go all over the place. Like this, we're talking about where we live, our planet. Like, it should not be a polarized partisan topic, and it fucking is, and it drives me crazy. And unfortunately, it's usually Republicans that are anti-climate change.
And it shouldn't be a political topic. Unfortunately, that's the problem here. No. But I see there being avenues to depoliticize climate. And actually, I was at this Protect Our Winners Summit. I love them. I've been doing work with them since I graduated college, obsessed with their work. But they had this summit with all of their ambassadors and, friends of the nonprofit. And they had the American Conservation Coalition come to speak. Mind you, this is a right-facing climate action group, which is another discussion that we can go into. I think it's a huge opportunity to reach Republicans and to inform them about climate. But they did this presentation, which really blew my mind. I had like my iPhone, I was like taking pictures throughout the whole presentation because my mind was completely blown. It was like having a look on the inside of the Republican Party and how they think and work and the triggers for them too. And so I wrote down some of the trigger words for conservatives when you're talking about climate, and they are radical, climate crisis, sustainable. This one won't surprise you, Owen. Regulate, progressivism, hiding is climate action, and then elites lecturing everyday Americans. That one hit home to me because, I'm in my master's right now at Harvard, and like, I'm sure to, even folks in my own family that is triggering to them. They don't want to be talked down to. And I get that. And unfortunately, like, I see a lot of that happening. I've seen myself, go down that route, and I'm like, okay, boom. Like, after seeing this, I've like completely changed how I address climate deniers or people that are like kind of like, teetering the line between both. I've completely changed everything. Another thing I think you'd find
Just
interesting.
real quick on that note, the talking down thing, I feel like the frustration that I see a lot, and it's on the same line of thought, is like hypocrisy within the elites. Like I saw an article this morning about how the US space station picked up all the methane release from Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin launch. Meanwhile, he has like his fucking climate fund. Same thing with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's like up there talking on stage all the time about how important fighting climate change is. He's flying around in private jets, take like huge yachts burning who knows how much fossil fuels to get around the islands of the
Oh, come on. Don't
Mediterranean.
be bashing Leo. Leo's
But
trying.
no, but to a certain point, like the elites talking down is really elites being hypocritical, and I see that all the time in our social media comments. Is like, how can you say one thing, sort of to the press or to the public, and then you have this whole separate private life where you're not paying attention to your own emissions, and I could see how that would frustrate a lot of people.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And to be fair to, the top 1% or 0.01% of earners are much more responsible for the climate crisis than the vast majority of the folks below. So yeah, I mean, these people, the billionaires, really owe it to the rest of the world to put their money where their mouth is, and really, they're the ones that need to be promoting a more sustainable lifestyle, not just with their billionaire boys club climate funds. Those are great, but those are also like tax write-offs from them too. Like
Yeah.
there's personally, I mean, I would probably be a terrible billionaire because I probably wouldn't be a billionaire for very long. I'd give it all away. But yeah, I think that's a talking point that myself, I don't know about you, Joel, but I'm assuming, I think that's a point that a lot of us can use as common ground, and maybe a way to like, okay, like we agree on a couple things here. Like we might not agree on vast majority of stuff, but like, flying around on private jets all the time, and the hypocrisy of a lot of people, not putting their money where their mouth is something that I think, would be a really great, talking point to encourage more dialogue. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I feel like we got to give less ammunition to the opposite side. Like we give a ton of talking points and ways to poke holes in what we're talking about. You bring up the climate crisis being like
Yeah, the crisis term. I just learned a lot from what she just shared about the various words that trigger.
Climate change is not a trigger. Climate crisis is.
We use climate crisis a lot, probably too much.
Yeah. Well, that's like the whole direction that the entire industry is going.
Yeah.
Global warming, climate change, climate crisis. And it's like, I can see their perspective.
Totally. Well, I love this message. I mean, I grew up in a place in Pennsylvania that was like the heart of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, we used to jump in old cement quarries, and Bethlehem Steel was there. And my high school nickname was the Zephyr because of a train that used to carry concrete aggregate around the area. And I got a lot of friends and family from that region who probably would call themselves conservative, and they like to rip me when they see me that I'm the West Coast liberal who's turned into a climate crazy person. But we often try to find common ground, and I think too around this idea of access to nature and protecting nature. It's something we all can agree upon. So again, Meg, it's important what you do. Well, we're running out of time, Meg, but I did want to point to, again, I love your content on Instagram specifically.
Thanks, Joel.
What's the secret? What are you trying to do? I mean, we danced around a lot of what you're focused on, and I know you wear a lot of hats, but would you consider yourself an educator? Is that primarily what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I would say I'm an educator, and my tools are photography. My tools are, creating creative avenues of looking at things and just finding places to highlight solutions and highlight positive actions in the right direction. So yes, I would say that, to distill everything and all the hats I wear is education.
Well, very cool. I think we're out of time.
No. I wanted to say real quick the topics that conservatives and liberals can agree upon.
Oh, all right, we got time. Please, let's have at it.
Okay. Well, green lights are, these are the ones that I wrote down from that chat. Conservation, which was surprising to me. Cost effective, actionable, responsible, and then stewardship, which I also found fascinating. And, another thing is having a personal connection, personal story to the environment. That is something that I try and lead with now after hearing that. Like sharing your story, like Joel, what you just did about Pennsylvania growing up. That's powerful. That's that personal connection that can really, people can feel that and put themselves in your shoes. And one last thing, conservatives and liberals can both agree on there should be more perspectives at the table when making these big decisions. So wanted to leave it on like a hopeful note of like, the fact that yes, we have a lot of differing opinions here and there's ways to like acknowledge that, but we also see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. And most of that ties down to just getting outside in nature with your friends and family and ensuring that we can do that for future generations.
Yeah, super important.
You hear that, Owen? Tell us some more stories. Like, you and I know each other a long time. We went to grad school together. That's where we met, at the Bren School at Santa Barbara.
Oh, really?
We were in a lot.
We met?
Yeah. And we were in a lot of like groups together doing projects. And of course, I had to do all the work. And, he was just claiming to be the analytical person in the background. You never brought this art skill to the table. I don't know. You've been hiding that from me?
Yeah, I was so busy crunching numbers in Excel, I didn't want to also have to make the poster boards.
The truth comes out. Well, dying to see your art skills, Owen.
Yeah, we're going to put you on the spot.
It was ceramics. I was a master ceramicist. I don't know if that's a word. And I made this thing that was amazing, and I had it my whole life up until when I just moved houses like 3 years ago, smashed the whole thing to pieces. So now there's no proof that I was this world-class ceramicist.
You got to get back into it.
You got to make a replica.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Should make that's what I'll do. Joel, new shiny object.
Yeah, okay.
Replicate the award-winning sculpture.
Meg, we're always trying to keep him focused on the main task, our business that we're working on, because he likes to just any idea he hears from a podcast host about some gap in the market that he can fill, he's gonna go start another business.
No, this is purely philanthropic. I'm not gonna make any money off this idea. It's just gonna, it's gonna fill this deep need that I have to create things out of clay.
Honestly, do it. It'll give you more, ammunition so you can do your climate work. You got to rest and play. Don't forget to play.
100%. Yeah. Joel, it's important.
Yeah. Well, Meg, this was a constant theme of your presence here today on the show, but I'm going to ask you the question we ask every guest at the end. We try to avoid the negativity around climate and the doomsdayers out there trying to make us all afraid of our future. And we want to focus on hope, and we want to focus on people taking action and being disruptors. So tell us, what gives you hope for the future?
Some breaking news. Ecuador just voted to halt oil drilling in one of the most biodiverse regions on planet Earth. So that is a huge win for the entire planet. And I think it was like 6-10 voted to reject oil exploration. So, I mean, not only is this a win for biodiversity, but also, for the lungs of our planet. So it just shows what, community organizing and global attention can do when we're trying to conserve places and fight against fossil fuels.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's huge news.
Yeah, just released today. Also, on a hyper local level, I'm in Sausalito, and our mayor, I've been working with her closely on this, but she's creating these resiliency hubs throughout the town to provide more equitable, renewable energy for, folks of all different backgrounds during natural disasters. So I think that is brilliant. And I love the global and local positive news.
Yeah, much needed. Well, thanks for sharing, Meg. We're wrapping up. Tell the world, how do we find you? I mean, I've been celebrating your Instagram account. I'm sure there's other ways people can be following you, but please, anyone who's out there listening, It's one of the best follows you can have on Instagram.
Really?
If you
Oh,
care
that's
about
so
the
sweet.
environment and you care about art, yeah, it's the best. We've had some crazy cool guests here on the show. We've been very fortunate. Meg, I've been as excited about this interview as anyone. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, I've been thrilled to be on it. Yeah, follow me, DM me on Instagram, send me a note on LinkedIn if you want. Always happy to nerd out and dork out. So yeah, just reach out. I love having like cold calls and FaceTimes and Zooms with strangers to talk about the planet.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. You can find us on most of the social media platforms at Join Raven. So that's Join, and Raven is with a Y, RAYVEN. You can find this podcast and more great content at joinraven.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And until next time, we encourage you to ask yourself, what are you doing to fight the climate crisis?